Apostle Goring from Nikki, Aurora and from me. Well, today's a very special day in more ways than one. The first and more personal way in which it is special is that this evening we are having a dinner party to celebrate Dima's 32nd birthday. Dima was born 32 years ago on the 3rd of January. Oh, I remember it as if it were yesterday. And do you know, I had no idea that I was a precursor to miraculous deliveries. Now, of course, Dima's delivery did not come via DHL or FedEx, although the Sunday Times was droll enough to say, not for Lady Colin, the efforts of the Labour ward, etc., etc. Well, I had a miracle baby, and I didn't realize that there were going to be other miracle babies, because I was in London while Dima was being born in St. Petersburg. Now, I didn't realize that actually would end up being a perfectly ordinary natural birth, and that, in fact, it would be setting a precedent of sorts for other people who would actually better me in the most magnificent way, because, for instance, I wasn't bouncing on a ball. Nobody was taking canisters of gas. No, none of that happened. I was just being very sedate in London while Dima was being born in St. Petersburg. Shades of other babies who have been delivered in the most wonderfully modern way. Need I say more? So now I will plunge in with what Arthurian says, because I have been making something ridiculous of something that really was profound, because I have been taking a leaf out of a certain well-known public personality's book, who has scaled the heights she started out on Instagram and Deal or No Deal, ended up as a member of the royal family, and has ended up back on Instagram and on her version of Deal or No Deal. Oh, sorry, it's called something else. With love, Meghan. With love, Meghan. So Arthurian says, I can't wait to hear Lady C's take on the Netflix trailer. Well, you don't have to wait any longer, my dear. I am going to plunge right in with my take on it. It will be a miracle if it doesn't tank, because she is so unlikable. She is so off-putting. She is so pretentious. And she actually doesn't realize that pretentiousness is not only not a virtue, it's not a vehicle for success, because she informs us that she's elevating the ordinary. Isn't that wonderful? She's going to elevate the ordinary. Well, can you imagine bruschetta? Bruschetta is she's showing everybody how to prepare a bruschetta. I mean, that's like showing people how to prepare a hot dog. Bruschetta is the end in pedestrianism. And it would appear that the purpose of the show is to not only show us how wonderful she is, and there's that chef who says, we're family, we're family. Family is not a word that should ever be used around Meghan Markle, because we all know what she's done to her family as well as his family, but we're family. She doesn't have an original idea in her head, nor clearly do the makers. Now, they've thrown some pretty good money at it, because one of the producers is the producer of Selena Gomez's cookery show, which has remarkable similarities, evidently, to Meghan's Netflix series. But we'll get there in a second. They have brought in Michael Steed, who worked with the late Monsieur Bourdin, who died rather tragically, so we're not going to go into that. And she has stolen ideas not only from Selena Gomez, but she has also stolen ideas from Emma Weymouth, the Marchioness of Bath, who does something called Emma's Kitchen and has been doing it for years. Now, Emma Bath is, like Meghan, mixed race. Unlike Meghan, she's genuinely stylish and genuinely beautiful. She is also intelligent and talented in a way that Meghan isn't. And I gather from people who've seen both shows that she's effectively hijacked Emma Weymouth. Well, I'm not surprised, because if you're going to copy, you may as well copy from those who have some ability. And Emma Bath definitely has ability. Netflix brought in as producers Eli Holtzman and Aaron Seidman. They are nicknamed the kings of reality TV. Reality TV. Surely we're not having a royal duchess doing a reality TV show. Can't be right. No, not a royal duchess who cocks her finger as she takes tea. Can't be possible. And with love from Meghan. Sorry, not even with love from Meghan, with love Meghan. Of course, they couldn't call it American Riviera Orchard, because that's hit all sorts of copyright problems. So with love Meghan, and then you have the curly cues. And I thought in the trailer that they tried to make out that it was A-list when it's clearly D-list. I mean, since when was Abigail Spencer anything but a D-lister? And the other one, Mindy Kaling, she may be a B-lister, but I don't think she's an A-lister. Oh dear, oh dear. My understanding is, my bongo drums are telling me, that Netflix is trying to retrieve its investment, which is of course sensible, and that Netflix has thrown everything it could at it to make it a success. But if there's a second series, it is going to end up being where Megsy Baby gets a fraction of what she got the last time around. Let us see what happens. because the whole thing is pathetic. I don't know why anybody would be looking at a pretentious piffler like Meghan Markle, showing them how to be classy. I'm gonna show you how to be classy. Classy with a capital K, because I'm classy. And it's not about perfection. It's about joy. Joy. Oh, I think we should be asking King Charles III about the joy Meghan has brought him. Or Queen Camilla. Or what about the Prince and Princess of Wales? Amazingly, did you notice? I mean, scabies isn't in it, at least not so far. Anyway, I think you've got my opinion of the trailer. I thought it was really off-putting, to summarize. I thought it was off-putting, and I thought she's off-putting. And all of this fake enthusiasm. We're teenagers. Everything is so wonderful and enthusiastic. We're teenagers. We're batting 50, but we're teenagers. Everything is so enthusiastic. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but Megsy Baby, who was well known to be a dominatrix, at one stage, more or less says, "Come on, right, follow the Führer." Oh dear, oh dear. I think that might have been something she didn't intend to impart. But did you notice it? Right, let's go. Or whatever she said, that was the message. Follow that leader. Well, we know where that leads. It's led Harry to perdition. Share the Unlimited says, this cooking show is food poisoning 101. I can just see her falling into the food she touches. Part 6 of how Harry and Meghan scammed Netflix. This falls under the Netflix category. I'm sorry about this atrocious product. We have to fulfill the last box from this unintelligent investment. Wonder if Cory Vitiello's roast chicken will feature. I hear it's Harry's favorite. Well, we all know that Harry proposed when they were roasting chicken. Oh, yes. I wonder if pudding is going to be some waffles with the waffle maker that they got that old woman. Now, what was her name again? Lilibet something. Can't remember her name. She wasn't important enough for me to remember her name. But I think I did name the child after her. But, yeah, I honored her. Curtsying for, as if I were a deep-sea diver, as if I were Archie at Birkenhead. Ooh, let's head for those knees. So mundane. But I'm sure people will look at it, if only to laugh. Ms. Sparkles and Glitter says, I just saw the Netflix trailer for the cable actress's cooking show, and it reminded me of why I unsubscribed from Netflix. They titled the series Much Love, Meghan. This for a woman who can't even show respect to her father, much less love. A man who has loved her since the day she was born and who she discarded as if he was a garbage bag. Even when Netflix finally cuts off the toxic duo for good, I will never give them a penny of my money again. Several other people have conveyed sentiments of that nature. My son has me with him on Netflix, and I would not be telling my children not to look at anything, but it doesn't cost me a penny. And it is a joke. Much love, Meghan. Family, we're family. Oh, we're family. There are some words that should never be used by Meghan Markle or anybody in the environs of Meghan Markle. One is love, the other is family. But they've got to show everybody how warm-hearted and wonderful she is. Jenny Chilton says, on Instagram, she is Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, which would be correct if they were divorced. On American Riviera Orchard, she has herself as Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, correct if they are married. Could they already be divorced, or is she just stupid? Well, Jenny Chilton, may I say, it is absolutely not correct that she is Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. She is the Duchess of Sussex with no further prefix in front of it. You only would say Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, to convey that she was divorced or that there were two or more Duchesses of Sussex. And she was but one of them. So she is the Duchess of Sussex unless she is divorced, at which point she becomes Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Yes, she has styled herself as Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. She is, I am told, branding herself for the future. Now, wouldn't it be interesting if they were to get divorced, that Harry put his titles into abeyance first? She wouldn't be Meghan, Duchess of Sussex anymore. No, she wouldn't. She would be Mrs. Meghan Windsor. Oh. One tear left eye. Is she stupid? That strikes me as pretty conniving, not stupid. But ultimately, people who don't understand that it is in their interest to be honest and straightforward rather than convoluted and, shall we say, game players. They're stupid, ultimately. Too clever by half is stupid by whole. But could they already be divorced? They're not divorced yet. That's my understanding. Susan Clark says, is it just me, or is it really insensitive of Meghan to go on a full, all-out blitz promoting herself, her Instagram account, and now her Netflix show after the terror attack in New Orleans? I find it offensive. Well, Susan Clark, I hear you. I'm going to have to take up for Megsy Baby, if only in part. I will say, of course, that she did capitalize upon Uvalde and worked her way into it so that she could be ready for another Mr. DeMille moment. However, all of this will have been scheduled by Netflix and Archewell with Netflix some time ago. They have to get the show in a period that is pretty fallow. January is a fallow period. January is one of the dead periods, so it should get better ratings than it would get in, say, December, where there would be a lot of competition. Also, the show has to be aired or streamed or presented, whatever word you want to use, before their contract runs out, because the ratings will, to an extent, determine whether Megsy Baby is offered 6 or low 7 figures for anything ever again, if at all offered anything. My hunch is that people are, and I could be wrong, this is just a hunch, it's not a prediction. My hunch is that this show will do, initially, people will look because of the ghoulish interest. And I think they're not going to, I think it's 5 or 6 shows. Now, the 5th or 6th, I've forgotten which one it is. I think the viewing figures will have fallen off considerably. However, I think initially there will be some interest, because people like to look at a denouement. But in fairness to her, yes, she could have said to Netflix, well, let us delay by 3 or 5 days. She could have. But we're speaking about a woman who jumped on the bandwagon to capitalize upon a tragedy at Uvalde. Why would she care one iota about what happened in either New Orleans or Las Vegas, unless it's to create a photo op? What do you think? Because I think the saber explosion outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and that truck that killed those 14 people so tragically, is just dreadful. But also, Harry and Meghan have been totally silent about the terrible accident that happened on Shaftesbury Avenue in London outside the Sondheim Theatre, which injured 4 people very seriously and killed a 25-year-old. Not a word from them so far. Oh, no photo ops. Do we begin to get the thread of fact? Sis Sandals says, Happy New Year, Lady C, to you too, my dear. So, as the world now knows, Megs is back on Instagram. Cock your finger as you take tea. It is reported here in the USA that she stands to monetize up to $800,000 per post. Mr. Piggles is going to fly. In fact, let's put on Mr. Piggles' goggles so you can see that Mr. Piggles is as clear-sighted and as factual a flyer as Delta Airlines. Let's put it that way. And a lot of it is based on how many followers she has. Isn't that marching on the UK titles? And that's okay. I guess she knows no one will ever call her out on it or take her titles away. Just amazing she gets by with everything. Second question. Wonder why she put her title as if she is divorced. She's back on Instagram. You can buy the illusion of more followers than you have. Instagram, I understand, is rather passé. It's had its day. maybe Kim Kardashian could get a lot of money at one point for posting, especially if she was going to show herself the way she did. However, that's Kim Kardashian. Meg's baby won't ever get $800,000 to post anything except a confession that will be hopefully posted by the post office, delivered by the Royal Mail, or maybe it can be delivered through DHL, about her ability to use delivery services. And why did she put her title as if she is divorced? Branding. If she's divorced, she's no longer Meghan the Duchess of Sussex. Not that she ever was Meghan the Duchess of Sussex. As I pointed out earlier, she's merely the Duchess of Sussex until she ceases to be the Duchess of Sussex. Then she becomes Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. I think it might be called anticipation. It's also called foresight. Do you now begin to see how absolutely right Gina Nelthorpe-Cowan, her former manager, is about how strategic Meghan is and how she does things in the present with an eye to the future? That's why she's styled herself Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. In my view. Sue Germain says, Lady C, are you sure that Harry and Meghan are falling apart? Because Netflix has just advertised Markle in her home, not hers. It's not her house. It's some rather fashionable Montecitans. It's in their house. It's not her house. But to continue. In her home, cooking with supposed friends and chefs. It's been advertised 3 times today already. So I listen to you and Dan, but a few of the newspapers have made it headline news, which really annoys me because there are so many more important things going on in our world that should be headlines, not that narcissistic idiot. I should say something worse about her, but I won't tonight. Well, Sue Germain, here's the deal. Meghan is light relief. Meghan is also schadenfreude, alive and kicking. People are not going to deprive themselves of the pleasure of enjoying seeing Meghan make a fool of herself yet again. And the newspapers, certainly in the United Kingdom, build you up to rip you down. So, at the moment, they're building her up, especially Associated Newspapers, because they're trying to settle their case with Harry. And they're giving Harry and Meghan a taste of good publicity. Let's see it last beyond the settlement, because I can tell you, if it does, this pig is going to be flying as well. However, you're absolutely right, because at the moment in the United Kingdom, we have quite an interesting development stirring, because some years ago there was in Oldham gangs grooming girls that were, and the gangs were of subcontinental origin. since this is YouTube, I'm going to be very careful how I put this. Keir Starmer, at the time, was the Director of Public Prosecutions. He took the decision to not prosecute them on the grounds that they were effectively, he did it on racial grounds, really. Any way you dress it up, he has made a lot of decisions on racial grounds where he has been positively in favor of non-Anglo-Saxon citizens and residents of this country. And that's why he's called Two-Tier Starmer. Now, Nigel Farage and Elon Musk have waded in, demanding that there be a public inquiry about Keir Starmer's failure to act upon what was a very serious problem. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, has also jumped on the bandwagon. Nigel, of course, has made it clear that she could have jumped any time in the last 14 and a half years, but she didn't. She chose to jump after he and Elon Musk have called for a public inquiry, which there should be, because why is Lucy Connolly in prison, but others who committed serious crimes over a protracted period of time weren't even tried for anything? So, since this is YouTube, I will leave it at that. But that is one thing that's going on in this country at the moment. Another thing is that Keir Starmer is looking to prevent Elon Musk from giving $100 million to reform, to help them to be established as a centre-right party. I'm sure he'll find a way of, he being Keir Starmer, of activating himself in that regard. Because just as how he activated himself in the regard of, first of all, suppressing relevant information about the identity of the Southport perpetrator, and when people smelt the rat that really was there and stacked to high heaven, and it started protests, the protesters were not only labelled in the most offensive manner, but Keir Starmer stood up and instructed the judiciary to put them in prison, because that's really what he called for them, and the judiciary listened. So there's an awful lot going on in this country, not to mention what has happened in the United States of America in the last few days with the Trump Hotel in Vegas and the awful situation in New Orleans. Alita Sherry says, just saw the 20 Labour politicians quit in protest. Is that allowed? And this is another thing that's going on here, because Elon Musk has been calling for an election, a general election. I'm not so sure how easy it and feasible and possible it is to have a general election. I think that might be very optimistic on his part. But certainly there is massive dissatisfaction in this country as a result of the performance of the government. And 20 Labour councillors from Broxtowe Borough Council in Nottinghamshire have resigned from the Labour Party, and they are going to be functioning as independents because of the performance of this government to date, including their removal of the heating allowance for the aged. Now, it so happens that this is a particularly cold winter, and this actually, as I'm speaking, is a particularly cold period. They couldn't have chosen a worse time to do it. But what this government is really doing is it's trying to change the whole complexion of British society to make it an updated version of what took place in the Soviet Union in the latter part of the Soviet era. And they're not overtly communist, but they certainly have very anti-traditional British values and policies. I need to be careful how I put it, because I need to be always accurate when dealing, especially when dealing with important matters of this nature. But of course, the politicians are allowed to quit. Let us see how many are standing at the next election. Let's see how many, because I will caution everybody against getting rid of Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer is Kerensky. We need to be careful. If we get rid of Kerensky, we don't have a Lenin replacing him. So let's leave it at that, because we want to continue with lighter, more juiciful matters than heavy politics. Ginger Cat says, Karen Spencer used to publish a wonderful newsletter and videos showing all her work at Althorp. I used to look forward to them. She clearly worked very, very hard restoring Objet d'Art and uncovering the history of Althorp. She clearly gave her heart and soul to Althorp. How he has treated her is disgraceful. Charles Spencer does not have a good reputation or a good record where women are concerned. Once he's worked his way through his interest in them. Let me put it like that. Karen Spencer has made the mistake that my late stepmother-in-law, Margaret, Duchess of Argyll, made. Margaret loved Inverera. Margaret poured what would now be tens of millions of pounds into restoring Inverera. Margaret was ignominiously booted out of Inverera by my father-in-law and banned from ever returning. It does not behoove a woman to marry a man and fall in love with his house unless she owns the house, because especially vain and spoilt men, they will begin to resent the competition that the house gives them, and they will resent at the very moment that they're grateful for all the attention and effort that's being lavished on the house. They will also begin to think, oh, well, it's not only about me. And then their petty jealousy kicks in, and also their mean streak kicks in. Well, it's not her house, it's my house, is their thinking. And, mean boys are as bad as mean girls. And there comes a point when they will think, well, I'm gonna pay her back. And they do. That's my take on it. I don't think I'm doing anybody an injustice. The vanity of certain men is beyond belief. The egotism, the self-centeredness, and the resentment that they have when anybody doesn't worship at their altar, but starts to indicate that other gods exist, and they have to be put in their place. I hope that gives you some insight into what I think has taken place. Talk for UK says, Charles Spencer says in his book that his mother abandoned them when he was little, but we know that's not to be the truth. She was abused by her husband and had the children taken away from her. Why an adult son should choose to denigrate his mother's reputation when she is no longer alive is rather evil to me, in my humble opinion. I think it's inhumane. I think it shows a desire to be a victim. I think it shows a carelessness about fair play. And I know as a fact, having written 2 books on Diana, and having spoken to several of the people involved, including the first Mrs. Shand Kidd, because she spoke to me about the breakup of her marriage. Charles Spencer has to know, and if he doesn't, I don't know what planet he's been living on, but it certainly isn't Earth. I don't know what planet he's been living on, because it is a matter of record, legal record, that Frances Shand Kidd, when she was Lady Althorp, left Johnny, took the children into London, put them in kindergarten for the autumn term, took them back to Park House on the Sandringham estate, which was the family home at that time, for Christmas. Johnny refused to allow her to leave with the children. She then instituted proceedings to gain custody of the children, and she did it not once but twice. She did it, which led up to the divorce, and after she lost custody, she did it a second time. Now, he has to know this. So he has to know she did not abandon those children. She moved heaven and earth to try to get those children back. And having failed, once they were divorced, she and Johnny were divorced, he allowed her to have the children as much as she wanted them and as much as it suited him. So he knows that she did not abandon them. And Diana herself used to say that every time they were leaving her mother, she would caterwaul and have crying jags and, oh, she didn't know why they had to go, blah, 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 which she found upsetting. So it can't be both. It tells you that Charles Spencer cherry picks, and Charles Spencer uses the victim card the way Harry uses the victim card, the way Meghan uses the victim card, and the way all people who seem to have antisocial aspects to their personality use the victim card. He's totally unfair. It's unjust, and it is actually, in my opinion, ignoble. And if he doesn't like it, he can sue me. Because there is the 2 court cases that his mother instituted to try to get back those children that prove that she did not willingly abandon those children. I mean, it is outrageous that he could be so insensitive and unfair. And it doesn't matter whether she's dead or alive. The fact of the matter is, it's not fair and it's not true. Jax says, the cut writer's name is Alison P. Davis. She was placed on leave after the article came out and Harry's wife complained. Davis went on to help write the American Horror Story episode Delicate about surrogacy and IVF gone awry. Make of that what you will. Coincidence or what? Coincidence or what? And it's interesting that I remembered her name as Phillips, because at the time that all of this was going on, I was suing the Mirror, whose editor was Alison Phillips. And I remembered by a process of association that Alison P. Davis and Alison Phillips had a name in common. I obviously got the wrong end of that stick, because it wasn't the last name, it was the first name. So thanks for pointing that out to me. But it's interesting to see how memory works and the brain works, isn't it? Now, as for the American Horror Story episode Delicate, but isn't it wonderful when surrogacy and IVF go right? Because I think it's wonderful how, no matter how children are brought into the world, as long as they are brought into the world and they are loved and that they are given a good start in life, I think it's wonderful. I also think it's terrible when parents who should know better expose their children to speculation that those parents, or at least one of them, knows to be injurious and still continues to do so. I think it's the height of irresponsibility. And I'm referring to Harry, because Harry has exposed his children to all sorts of speculation that when he was exposed to, he found discomforting. Why does he think they won't find it discomforting? Maybe he's hoping to shut down everybody and muzzle everybody before they're old enough to know about it. Oh, so that means he's also not only going to muzzle everybody, he's going to wipe the record clean. Oh my goodness. Now we know why Harry thinks the First Amendment is bonkers. But I think Harry is bonkers, And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Thank you so much. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.